I stood in my Austin apartment, staring at the collections notice in my hand, and my entire world tilted sideways. $70,000. A loan I never took out. My hands trembled as I read the document over and over, searching for some mistake, some explanation that made sense. The loan had been approved 6 months ago, allegedly bearing my signature. I grabbed my phone and called the bank immediately, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The loan officer confirmed everything. My social security number, my address, all correct. But I never signed anything. My stomach dropped when she mentioned the co-signer's name. Linda, my mother. Then she said the loan purpose. Startup capital for Tyler, my golden child brother. My family had committed identity theft against me. I didn't think. I just grabbed my keys and drove. The collections notice sat crumpled on my passenger seat as I navigated through Austin traffic toward the suburbs where my parents still lived. Every red light felt like torture. My mind raced through memories I'd buried deep. Tyler's new car last year. That seemed too expensive. My mother's dismissive tone when I'd mentioned my lost driver's license 6 months ago. My father's cold silence whenever I talked about my own achievements. The house came into view, the same 4-bedroom colonial where I'd grown up always feeling like a guest. Tyler's midnight blue sports car sat in the driveway, gleaming under the Texas Sunday. That car probably cost $40,000. Meanwhile, I drove a sensible used Honda. Because I believed in living within my means. I didn't knock. I walked straight through the front door into the living room where they sat like a tribunal. My mother Linda on the floral sofa, my father Gerald in his recliner, and Tyler sprawled on the loveseat with his phone in his hand. They looked up at me with expressions ranging from surprise to annoyance. I threw the collections notice onto the coffee table. It landed between a magazine and my mother's teacup. Want to explain this? My voice came out steadier than I felt. My mother glanced at the paper, and I watched her face carefully. No shock, no confusion. Just a flicker of something like resignation. "Vaughn, sweetheart, let me explain," she started, using that placating tone she'd perfected over the years. "Explain how you forged my signature to steal $70,000? I cut her off. My father shifted in his chair. "Don't be dramatic. Nobody stole anything. Then what do you call taking out a loan in someone else's name without their knowledge or consent?" Tyler finally looked up from his phone. "Bro, seriously? You're making a big deal out of nothing. I needed capital for my app. You have a good job. 6 figures. You can handle it." I stared at my younger brother, 28 years old, and he'd never held a real job in his life. Every business idea he'd ever had crashed and burned within months, and my parents always caught him when he fell. "Handle it?" I repeated. "Tyler, this is fraud. This is illegal." My mother's eyes filled with tears. Tyler needed help. His app idea is revolutionary. It's going to be huge. You'll get paid back, I promise. How exactly will I get paid back when Tyler has never successfully completed anything in his entire life? My father stood up, his face reddening. "That's enough. Family helps family. Your brother is trying to build something. You should be supporting him, not attacking him." "Supporting him?" I felt my voice rising. "I never agreed to this. You forged my signature. That's identity theft. That's fraud. I could call the police right now." My mother gasped. "You wouldn't. Vaughn, please. I'm your mother. You'd really send me to jail? You committed a crime against me, Mom. Against your own son." "Oh, come off it," Tyler said, tossing his phone aside. "You're being such a drama queen. It's just money. You make plenty of it. Stop being selfish." I turned to him, and years of accumulated resentment bubbled up. "Selfish? I'm selfish? You've lived rent-free in the basement for 3 years. You drive a car that costs more than most people make in a year. You've burned through how much of Mom and Dad's money on your failed schemes? That's different, my father said coldly. Tyler is building a future. You already have yours. The logic was so twisted I almost laughed. So because I worked hard and built a career, that means you get to destroy my credit and saddle me with debt? My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. We knew you'd be upset, but we also knew you'd come around eventually. You always do. You're the responsible one. That phrase, the responsible one. Translation: the one we can take advantage of, because he'll always clean up the mess. This isn't something I can just come around on. This is serious. My father's expression hardened. If you involve the police, you're no longer part of this family. I mean it, Vaughn. You'll be dead to us. The threat hung in the air. This was supposed to be my family. These were supposed to be the people who loved me unconditionally. Actually, my father continued, his tone almost casual. This reminds me. We should probably tell you about the credit cards. My blood ran cold. What credit cards? Oh, well, my mother said, wringing her hands. Tyler needed some funding for his last business idea about 2 years ago. We opened a few credit cards in your name. Just 3. They're mostly paid off. Mostly. I could barely get the word out. Well, there's about $25,000 across them, but we've been making the minimum payments. We get your mail here sometimes, statements and such. We've been handling it. The room spun. You've been intercepting my mail and making minimum payments on $25,000 of debt I didn't know about? What has that done to my credit score? Tyler shrugged. Can't be that bad. You've been destroying my financial life for 2 years, and you think it can't be that bad. My father waved his hand dismissively. You're overreacting. Lots of families do this. We're helping Tyler build something real. His app is going to revolutionize social media. What app? I demanded, looking at Tyler. Describe it to me. What does it do? Tyler's confident expression faltered. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand the technical aspects. I'm a software engineer, Tyler. Try me. It's about connecting people in new ways. Disrupting the industry. He had nothing. No real plan, no product, nothing but vague buzzwords he'd probably picked up from a podcast. There is no app, is there? There will be, he said defensively. I'm in the development phase. For 6 months? On $70,000? Show me one line of code. One mock-up. One business plan. Silence. My mother stood up. Vaughn, honey, you're being cruel. Tyler is trying his best. And what about me, Mom? Did you ever think about what you were doing to me? Did it ever cross your mind that this was wrong? She looked at me with those wounded eyes, playing the victim. I thought you'd understand. I thought you loved your brother. I do love him. But that doesn't mean I have to bankroll his fantasies while you commit crimes in my name. I turned and walked toward the door. My father's voice followed me. If you make trouble over this, you're out of this family. Permanently. We'll deny everything. Who do you think they'll believe? I stopped at the door and looked back at them. 3 people who shared my DNA but felt like complete strangers. I believed we were a family. I guess I was wrong. I walked out, and their voices erupted behind me, calling me ungrateful, selfish, a traitor. I got in my car and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. My family had been systematically destroying my financial life for years. They'd stolen my identity, forged my signature, intercepted my mail, and destroyed my credit. And they felt justified. They felt entitled to do it. I pulled out my phone and started searching for fraud attorneys in Austin. The responsible one was done cleaning up everyone else's mess. I took a personal day from work the next morning. I couldn't focus on code when my entire life was unraveling. At 9 o'clock, I sat in the office of Craig Hoffman, a fraud and identity theft attorney in downtown Austin. His office was efficient and professional, much like the man himself. Mid-50s, graying hair, and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Tell me everything," he said, pen poised over a legal pad. I walked him through it all. The loan, the credit cards, my family's casual admission of guilt. Craig took notes, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. "First thing," he said when I finished, "we need to pull your complete credit report. All 3 bureaus. We need to see the full extent of the damage." He pulled up the reporting websites on his computer and walked me through requesting the reports. We sat in silence as the pages loaded. When they finally appeared, I felt physically sick. The $70,000 loan from First National Bank. 3 credit cards from different issuers, all maxed out, totaling $25,000. But there was more. So much more. A car loan from Dallas Credit Union for $38,000. The loan was 18 months old. I'd never bought a car. Tyler's sports car flashed through my mind. 2 department store credit cards I'd never opened, with a combined balance of $8,000. "That's $141,000 in fraudulent debt," Craig said quietly. "And your credit score is 472. I stared at the number. 472. That was catastrophic. That was can't rent an apartment, can't get a loan, can't do anything territory. How? I managed to ask. How did they do all this without me knowing? You said they've been intercepting your mail? Some of it. Statements and things. That's how. They've been managing the accounts, making minimum payments to keep things from going to collections until now. The $70,000 loan must have been too big to handle. What are my options? Craig leaned back in his chair. Legally, you have 2 paths. Path 1. You file a police report for identity theft and fraud. With a police report, you can dispute all these debts. The banks will investigate. Your family members will likely be charged criminally, and you'll eventually be cleared of the debt. Your credit will take time to recover, but it will. And path 2? Path 2. You try to dispute the debts without a police report. But I'll be honest with you, Vaughn, that almost never works. Creditors want to see criminal charges filed. Without that, they assume you're trying to get out of legitimate debt. So I either send my family to jail, or I'm stuck with $141,000 in debt I didn't create. I'm afraid so. I know that's not what you want to hear. It wasn't. But I also knew what was right. Let's start with the bank. The loan. Maybe if I show them proof that it wasn't me, they'll work with me. Craig nodded but looked skeptical. We can try. I'll set up a meeting with their fraud department. 2 days later, we sat in a conference room at First National Bank with their fraud investigator, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s named Heather. She had a file folder in front of her, and an expression that suggested she'd seen every scam in the book. "Mr. Sullivan," she began, "I've reviewed your case. You claim you didn't take out this loan? I didn't. Someone forged my signature. Do you have any proof of that?" Craig slid a document across the table. "We've had a handwriting expert examine the signature. His analysis shows significant differences from Mr. Sullivan's actual signature." Heather glanced at the document but didn't seem impressed. "Signatures can vary. People don't always sign the same way twice. The differences are substantial," Craig insisted. "Let me show you something," Heather said. She opened her laptop and turned it toward us. "This is security footage from 6 months ago, the day the loan was signed." The video played. A man walked into the bank, approached the counter, and spoke with a loan officer. They moved to a desk. Papers were signed. The man left. "That's not me," I said immediately. "How can you be sure?" "The video quality isn't perfect, and he's wearing a baseball cap and glasses, because I wasn't here 6 months ago. I can prove it. Work records. Calendar. Anything you need." The man in the video presented your driver's license, your social security card. He knew all your personal information. My mind raced. I reported my driver's license lost 6 months ago. I thought I'd misplaced it. So someone could have stolen it? My brother, Tyler. He looks similar to me. Same build, same general features. Heather closed the laptop. Mr. Sullivan, I understand this is difficult, but without a police report proving identity theft, the bank's position is that you are responsible for this loan. The signature looks close enough. The person presented valid identification, and all your information was correct. So that's it? I'm just stuck with this? File a police report. If your family members are charged and convicted of identity theft, the bank will work with you. Until then, the loan is your responsibility. We left the bank in defeat. Craig walked me to my car in the parking garage. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, he said. I have to file charges against my own family. You have to protect yourself. What they did is illegal and wrong. Would they hesitate to protect themselves if the situation were reversed? I thought about my father's threat to disown me, my mother's tears that seemed more about being caught than genuine remorse, Tyler's complete lack of accountability. No, I admitted. They wouldn't hesitate. Then, you have your answer. I drove home in a daze. That evening, I sat in my apartment looking at the police department's website. The page on filing reports for identity theft stared back at me. My finger hovered over the mouse, ready to click through to the forms. Family helps family. My father's words echoed in my head, but what they'd done wasn't helping. It was destroying. And I was the only one who seemed to see that. I clicked the link and started reading what I'd need to file a report. Tomorrow, I'd go to the police station. Tomorrow, I'd stop being the responsible one who cleaned up everyone else's mess and start being the person who held them accountable. I just hoped I could live with the consequences. 3 days later, I walked into the Austin Police Department's downtown station with a folder full of documents. My hands shook slightly as I approached the front desk. I need to file a report for identity theft, I told the officer at the desk. She directed me to wait in a small room. 20 minutes later, a detective entered. He was in his 50s, with tired eyes and a firm handshake. I'm Detective Raymond Bosch, he said, settling into the chair across from me. I understand you want to report identity theft. Yes. My mother and brother forged my signature and took out loans in my name. Credit cards, too. Over $140,000 total. I walked him through everything, laying out each piece of evidence. The collections notice, the credit reports, the bank security footage, the handwriting analysis. Detective Bosch took careful notes, his expression growing more serious as I spoke. This is clear-cut fraud, he said when I finished. You have all the documentation we need. The bank's security footage showing someone else using your identification is particularly damning. So what happens now? I'll open a formal investigation. We'll contact your mother and brother for interviews. Based on what you've shown me, I expect we'll be issuing warrants for their arrest within a week. This is serious, Mr. Sullivan. Your mother and brother are looking at felony charges. The weight of what I was doing hit me fully. They'll go to jail? Likely, yes. Identity theft, fraud, forgery. These aren't minor crimes. Your mother, as the co-signer on the main loan, is particularly liable. Your brother, if he was the one impersonating you at the bank, is looking at multiple felonies. I signed the formal complaint. Detective Bosch assured me he'd be in touch soon. I walked out of the police station feeling like I'd just set something irreversible in motion. Which I had. In my car, I called my parents' house. My father answered, "What do you want?" "I need to tell you something. I filed a police report for the identity theft. They're going to contact you and Mom and Tyler. I wanted you to hear it from me first." Silence. Then, "You did what?" "I filed charges. Dad, what you did was illegal." I gave you a chance to make this right, and you threatened to disown me instead. You're a traitor. You're scum. I can't believe we raised someone who would turn on his own family like this. You turned on me first. You've been destroying my credit for years. We were helping Tyler. We were trying to give him a chance. By ruining my life? That's not help. That's theft. You're dead to me, my father said. Dead. Don't ever contact this family again. The line went dead. I sat in my car, staring at my phone. Part of me had hoped for a different reaction. An apology. Some acknowledgement of wrongdoing. But I'd gotten exactly what I should have expected. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. You're a snitch and a coward. We'll see who comes out ahead. I ignored it. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Sullivan? This is Patricia from Human Resources at your company. My stomach dropped. Yes? We need you to come in immediately. There's been a complaint filed against you that requires investigation. What kind of complaint? I can't discuss it over the phone. Can you come to the office now? I'm on administrative leave today. But yes, I can come in. We'll see you shortly. I drove to my office in a state of confusion. What complaint? I'd done nothing wrong at work. I was a model employee. In the HR office, Patricia sat across from me with a thick file folder and a grim expression. Next to her was my manager, Tom, who looked uncomfortable. Mr. Sullivan, Patricia began. We've received a complaint alleging that you've been embezzling company funds and have a serious gambling problem. What? That's absurd. I've never taken a dime that wasn't mine. And I don't gamble. The complaint includes documentation. Screenshots of gambling websites allegedly accessed from your work computer. An anonymous tip claiming you've been desperate for money and acting erratically. She slid printouts across the table. They showed betting websites with what appeared to be my username logged in. Except, I'd never visited those sites in my life. These are fake. Someone doctored these. I've never been to any of these websites. The metadata shows they came from your company laptop. Then someone gained access to my laptop or faked the metadata. This isn't real, Tom spoke up. Vaughn, we've worked together for 4 years. I find this hard to believe, but we have to investigate any allegation this serious. Who made the complaint? It was anonymous, Patricia said. Anonymous from where? Internal or external? We can't disclose that. My family is retaliating against me. I filed a police report against them this morning for identity theft. This is their revenge. Patricia and Tom exchanged glances. That's quite a story, Patricia said carefully. It's the truth. Check with the police department. Detective Raymond Bosch. He can confirm I filed charges today. Regardless of external circumstances, we have to take this complaint seriously. We're placing you on unpaid administrative leave, pending a full investigation of your work computer and financial access. Unpaid? I need my income. I have bills. Company policy. If you're cleared, you'll receive back pay. But until the investigation concludes, you're not to come to the office or access company systems. I was escorted out of the building like a criminal. Other employees stared as security walked me to my car. 4 years of loyalty and hard work, destroyed in minutes by fabricated accusations. In my car, I called Craig Hoffman. They're retaliating, I told him. My family got to someone at my work. They've filed false complaints and gotten me suspended without pay. Can you prove the connection? Not directly, but the timing is too convenient. I filed charges in the morning. I'm suspended by afternoon. Document everything. Save all communications. We may need them. I drove back to my apartment, feeling like I was drowning. No income. Massive debt. My family actively working to destroy me. I'd done the right thing by filing charges. But the right thing was destroying my life. That evening, more texts came from extended family. My aunt called me a disgrace. My uncle said I was tearing the family apart. Cousins I'd barely spoken to in years sent messages calling me selfish and vindictive. Tyler had clearly been working overtime to paint himself as the victim and me as the villain. I turned off my phone and sat in silence, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. If I'd just paid the debt quietly, kept my head down, none of this would be happening. But I also knew that path led to a lifetime of being used, of always being the responsible one who absorbed everyone else's bad decisions. I'd started something I couldn't stop now. All I could do was see it through and hope I survived the fallout. 1 week later, I got the call from Detective Bosch. Linda and Tyler had been arrested. They'd been charged with identity theft, fraud, and forgery, multiple felonies. They were being held on $50,000 bail each. Within hours, my father had posted bail for both of them. I later learned he'd taken out a loan against the house to do it. The irony wasn't lost on me. More debt piled on top of debt. All to protect Tyler. My phone exploded with messages. Voicemails filled with screaming accusations. Text messages calling me every name imaginable. My Aunt Jennifer left a 5-minute voicemail sobbing about how I'd destroyed the family. My Uncle Paul sent a text saying I was no nephew of his. The family narrative was set. I was the villain. I was the one tearing everyone apart over money. Tyler was the victim of a vindictive brother who couldn't stand to see him succeed. Never mind that there was no success, no app, no business, just debt and lies and stolen identity. The investigation at my work dragged on. Tom called me once to say they were conducting forensic analysis of my work computer, but it would take time. In the meantime, I had no income. My savings account dwindled as I paid rent, utilities, and food. The fraudulent debts sat in collections, accruing interest and penalties. I tried to dispute them with the creditors, but without criminal convictions, they wouldn't budge. The police report helped with a few of the smaller accounts, but the big ones, the car loan and the $70,000 loan, those were going nowhere. The banks wanted to see actual convictions before they'd write off that much money. I was drowning. Every day brought new financial stress. Collection agencies called constantly, threatening lawsuits. My credit score made it impossible to refinance or consolidate anything. I was trapped. 2 weeks after the arrests, I got a call from Detective Bosch. Mr. Sullivan, I need to inform you of a development in your case. Your brother has filed for a restraining order against you. What? On what grounds? He claims you've been threatening him, harassing him. He's provided text messages as evidence. I haven't contacted him at all since this started. The only messages I've gotten are from him, threatening me. He's provided screenshots of texts allegedly from your number containing violent threats. They're fake. I haven't sent him anything. The court granted a temporary restraining order, pending a hearing. You're legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from your brother, your mother, and your parents' residence. This was a nightmare. This complicates the criminal case, doesn't it? It doesn't help. We'll need to verify whether those texts are legitimate. But in the meantime, you need to comply with the order, or you'll be arrested. I hired a digital forensics expert recommended by Craig, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who specialized in analyzing electronic communications. She was expensive, eating into my dwindling savings, but I needed proof those texts were fabricated. Dr. Chen took 2 days to analyze my phone and phone records. When she called with her findings, I was in my apartment eating ramen noodles for the 3rd day in a row. The texts Tyler provided to the court didn't come from your phone, she said. They came from a spoofing service. Someone used an app to make texts appear to come from your number. I can prove it with the metadata and your actual phone records. Thank God, there's more. I traced the spoofed texts back to their origin. They were sent from an IP address registered to your parents' home address. Someone in that house sent those texts. Tyler, most likely. I'll prepare a full report for your attorney. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, I had to deal with another catastrophe. I came home from a job interview, my first since the suspension, to find my door plastered with eviction notices. I was 2 weeks late on rent. My landlord had filed for eviction. I had 10 days to pay or move out. I didn't have the money. Between attorney fees, the forensics expert, and basic living expenses, my savings were nearly gone. I called my best friend from college, Marcus. We'd stayed close over the years, and he lived across town. Man, I hate to ask this, but I'm in trouble. What's going on? I explained everything. The family fraud, the criminal charges, the work suspension, the eviction. Marcus listened, without interrupting. "Move in with me," he said when I finished. "I have a spare room. Stay as long as you need. I can't pay rent right now. Then don't. We'll figure it out when you're back on your feet. You're my brother, Vaughn. Not by blood, but by choice. And that counts for more." I nearly cried with relief. "Thank you. Pack your stuff. I'll come help you move this weekend." The day before the restraining order hearing, my work situation resolved itself, but not in the way I'd hoped. Patricia from HR called me. "Mr. Sullivan, the investigation is complete. While we found no evidence of embezzlement or misuse of company funds, and the gambling accusations appear to be unfounded, the company has decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately." "What? You just said I didn't do anything wrong." The nature of the allegations and the situation surrounding them have created concerns about workplace environment and company reputation. We feel it's best to part ways. This is wrongful termination. You're welcome to pursue legal action if you feel that's appropriate. We'll be sending you a severance package offer. I'd advise you to review it carefully with an attorney. They were cutting me loose. 4 years of dedication, and they were throwing me away because my family had fabricated accusations. They were too afraid of bad publicity to stand by me. I was unemployed, effectively homeless, saved only by Marcus's generosity, facing criminal retaliation from my family, drowning in debt I didn't create, and my own extended family had turned against me. That night, staying in Marcus's spare room, I hit a wall. I sat on the floor and let myself break down. Tears came, hot and angry. I'd done everything right. Worked hard, built a career, lived responsibly. And it had all been destroyed because my family valued Tyler's fantasies over my reality. Marcus found me there an hour later. He didn't say anything. Just sat down next to me. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted. "Maybe I should just let it go. Drop the charges, file bankruptcy, start over somewhere else, and let them win. Let them destroy you and walk away without consequences." "What consequences?" "Tyler and Mom are out on bail. They're living their lives. I'm the one whose life is destroyed, for now. But you're doing the right thing, Vaughn. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are. Someday, maybe not soon, but someday, you'll be glad you stood up for yourself." I wanted to believe him. But in that moment, doing the right thing felt like the worst decision I'd ever made. The restraining order hearing happened 3 days later. I walked into the courthouse with Craig Hoffman and Dr. Chen's full report. Tyler showed up with a cheap-looking attorney and a smug expression. My mother sat in the gallery, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The judge, a severe-looking woman in her 60s named Judge Martinez, reviewed the filings with a skeptical expression. "Mr. Tyler Sullivan," she said, "you're claiming your brother has been threatening you?" "Yes, Your Honor. He's been sending me violent texts ever since he filed those false charges against me and my mother." "False charges?" The judge's eyebrow raised. "You're aware there's an active criminal case against you for identity theft and fraud? Those charges are based on lies. My brother is trying to avoid paying back money he owes. Craig stood. Your Honor, if I may. We have evidence that the texts Mr. Tyler Sullivan provided to the court are fabricated. He submitted Dr. Chen's report. The judge read it carefully, her expression darkening. This report states that the texts in question were sent using a spoofing service from an IP address registered to your parents' home. The same home where you live, Mr. Tyler Sullivan. Tyler's attorney jumped in. That doesn't prove my client sent them. Anyone could have used that internet connection. True, the judge said. But combined with the fact that the defendant's actual phone records show no outgoing texts to the petitioner during the time frame in question, it paints a concerning picture. She looked at Tyler directly. Did you send these texts yourself using a spoofing service to make them appear to come from your brother? No, Your Honor. So someone else in your household sent them? I don't know anything about that. The judge wasn't buying it. I could see it in her face. She dealt with enough liars to recognize one. The temporary restraining order is dismissed, she said firmly. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of filing a false police report. Mr. Tyler Sullivan, you may face additional criminal charges. Tyler's face went red. This is ridiculous. You're taking his side because he's playing the victim. Mr. Sullivan, the judge said coldly, I strongly advise you to stop talking. But Tyler didn't stop. He's the one who deserves everything coming to him. This isn't over. He thinks he can destroy this family and walk away. He's wrong. Mr. Sullivan, you're in contempt of court. Judge Martinez signaled to the bailiff. Take him into custody. Tyler started yelling as the bailiff approached. His attorney tried to calm him down, but Tyler was beyond reason. He lunged toward me, and the bailiff grabbed him. It took 2 officers to restrain him as he screamed threats and obscenities. My mother wailed from the gallery. Tyler was dragged out, still shouting. The judge ordered him held for 24 hours for contempt. In the chaos, I noticed my mother leaving the courtroom on her phone. She was talking frantically to someone. Outside the courthouse, Craig pulled me aside. That went better than expected. Tyler's losing it. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. And your brother just made a big one in front of a judge. I should have felt victorious. The restraining order was dismissed. Tyler was in custody. But I just felt exhausted. That evening, staying at Marcus's place, I received a severance package offer from my former employer. $40,000 in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement and waiving my right to sue for wrongful termination. I showed it to Craig over the phone. It's a fair offer given the circumstances, he said. They're worried you'll sue, so they're paying you to go away quietly. Should I take it? That's up to you. But you need money. And a wrongful termination lawsuit could take years, with no guarantee of winning. $40,000 gives you breathing room. I signed the agreement. The money hit my account 3 days later. It wasn't a solution, but it was enough to survive while I figured out my next move. Meanwhile, I hired the private investigator Craig recommended, Janet Corello. She was in her 50s, former law enforcement, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. What do you need? She asked in her office. Everything. I need to know where that $70,000 actually went. I need to know if there's anything else I don't know about. I need ammunition. Ammunition for what? To fight back. My family thinks they can destroy me and walk away. I need to prove they're not the victims they're pretending to be. Janet nodded. Give me 2 weeks. She delivered in 10 days. I met her at a coffee shop, and she slid a folder across the table. Your brother's business is a complete fabrication, she said. There's no app, no business plan, no incorporation documents, nothing. He's got a website that's just a landing page with vague descriptions. That's it. Where did the $70,000 go? $38,000 went to that sports car. Bought it outright. $20,000 went to paying gambling debts to some unsavory people. Your brother's got a serious problem with sports betting and poker. The rest went to luxury items. Clothes, electronics, trips to Vegas. So he defrauded me to pay for his lifestyle and gambling addiction. Essentially, yes. But that's not the interesting part. Janet pulled out more documents. I looked into your father, Gerald Sullivan. He works as an accountant for Redmond Construction, correct? Yes. He's been embezzling from them for 3 years. Approximately $250,000. I stared at her. What? I followed the money trails backward from Tyler's accounts. Several large deposits that were listed as business expenses or loans from your father. But your father doesn't have that kind of money legitimately. So I dug deeper. Redmond Construction has been missing money for years. Small amounts at first, then larger. Your father's been cooking the books, moving money through shell accounts, and using it to fund Tyler's lifestyle. Can you prove this? I've got enough to point law enforcement in the right direction. Bank records, deposit patterns, connections between your father's shell accounts and payments to Tyler. It's not a complete case, but it's enough to start an investigation. My father was a criminal. Not just in enabling Tyler's fraud against me, but in his own right. He'd been stealing from his employer for years. There's more, Janet said. Your father's been setting up a narrative. He's been telling extended family, friends, anyone who'll listen, that you're the problem, that you're mentally unstable, that you've always been jealous of Tyler. He's preparing to paint you as the villain if his own crimes come to light. So he's been planning this. For a while. Yeah, he's smart. Probably thought if he kept you looking like the bad guy, no one would believe you if you accused him of anything. I sat back, processing it all. My family's dysfunction ran deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't just about protecting Tyler. This was about my father covering his own crimes. What do I do with this information? Give it to Detective Bosch. Let him run with it. This could flip your entire case. If your father's the real criminal here, if he's been using both his son's identities to hide his embezzlement, that changes everything. I took the folder. That evening, I called Detective Bosch and set up a meeting. The next morning, I handed him everything Janet had compiled. He read through it methodically, his expression grave. "This is serious," he said. "If this is accurate, we're talking about a much bigger case than simple identity theft. Can you investigate it? I'll pass this to our financial crimes unit. They'll want to talk to your PI. If there's substance here, we'll pursue it." "My father's dangerous," I said. "If he finds out I gave you this, I don't know what he'll do. We'll be careful." "And, Mr. Sullivan? You did the right thing bringing this to us." I left the police station feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not happiness, but hope. Maybe, just maybe, the truth would finally come out. Maybe my family's lies would finally catch up to them. And maybe, eventually, I'd be free of all of this. The next 3 weeks moved fast. Detective Bosch and the Financial Crimes Unit worked with Janet's information and started building a case against my father. Meanwhile, the original criminal case against Tyler and my mother moved forward. The fake social media accounts Tyler had created were taken down after I submitted Dr. Chen's forensic evidence to the platforms. Each site confirmed they'd provide law enforcement with creation data, device information, and IP addresses. All of it traced back to Tyler. My former employer's legal team reached out through Craig. They'd realized their mistake in terminating me. The investigation had confirmed the allegations were false, and they were concerned I might sue despite the severance agreement. Craig negotiated a reference letter, stating I'd left in good standing, and a commitment that they'd only confirm dates of employment if contacted by future employers. It wasn't reinstatement, but it removed the stigma of being fired. I started job hunting seriously. With the $40,000 severance, I could afford to be selective. I applied to positions at companies across Austin carefully explaining in interviews that I'd been the victim of identity theft by family members, and it had created temporary complications that were now resolved. Most interviewers were sympathetic. One hiring manager told me his sister had stolen his identity years ago, so he understood completely. I got 3 job offers within 2 weeks and accepted a position at a cybersecurity firm with a 20% pay increase over my previous job. They appreciated my integrity in handling the situation with my family. Things were slowly stabilizing. But the real battle was still ahead. The restraining order hearing had resulted in additional charges against Tyler for filing a false police report and criminal harassment. Combined with the identity theft and fraud charges, he was looking at serious prison time if convicted. My mother, facing her own fraud and conspiracy charges, finally broke. Her attorney contacted Craig and proposed a deal. Linda would cooperate fully with the investigation in exchange for reduced charges. What does that mean? I asked Craig. It means she'll testify against Tyler and Gerald. She'll admit to what she knew and when. She'll provide documentation and evidence. In exchange, the DA will likely offer probation instead of prison time. She's turning on them. Self-preservation. She's looking at 3 to 5 years otherwise. This gets her probation and house arrest at worst. I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me wanted her to face real consequences. Another part understood that cooperating might be the only way the full truth came out. Linda's cooperation opened floodgates. She provided emails where Tyler admitted the app was fake. Text messages where Gerald discussed moving money through shell accounts. Bank statements showing deposits from Gerald to Tyler that corresponded with missing money from Redmond Construction. Armed with Linda's testimony and Janet's investigation, the police arrested Gerald at his office. Redmond Construction's owners had been notified and cooperated fully with the investigation. They'd conducted their own audit and confirmed approximately $250,000 had been embezzled over 3 years. Gerald was charged with embezzlement, money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. He was denied bail due to flight risk. Unlike Tyler and Linda, Gerald had the resources and connections to disappear. My father sat in county jail awaiting trial. Tyler, out on bail but facing overwhelming evidence, was spiraling. He posted rants on social media about how I'd destroyed the family. He called me every name imaginable. His attorney eventually got him to delete the posts, but not before they'd been screenshot and saved. The preliminary hearing for Tyler and Linda's case happened on a cold morning in November. I sat in the courtroom as evidence was presented. The bank security footage of Tyler impersonating me. The handwriting analysis. My credit reports showing the fraudulent accounts. Linda's testimony admitting she co-signed the loan knowing I hadn't approved it. Tyler sat at the defense table looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Gone was the smug confidence. He looked scared and defeated. His attorney made a motion to dismiss, based on lack of evidence. The judge denied it immediately. There was overwhelming evidence. The case would proceed to trial. Outside the courthouse, Tyler saw me. His attorney tried to steer him away. But Tyler pulled free and approached me. "This is all your fault," he said. "Everything. Dad's in jail because of you. Mom's facing charges because of you. I'm probably going to prison because of you. No, Tyler. You're facing consequences because of your choices. Because you committed crimes. I needed that money. Those people I owed, they weren't just going to forget about it. So you destroyed my life to save yours? You were supposed to be my brother. Brothers help each other. I would have helped you if you'd asked, if you'd been honest. But you stole from me. You forged my signature. You impersonated me. You tried to frame me at work. You filed false charges against me. At every turn, when you could have made this right, you made it worse." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know what else to do. You could have gotten help. Real help. For the gambling. For the debt. But instead, you let Dad manipulate you into committing felonies. Dad said it would be fine. He said you'd never know. And even if you found out, you'd let it go because we're family. Dad was wrong about all of it. Tyler's attorney pulled him away. I watched him go, feeling a complicated mix of anger, pity, and sadness. He was my brother. We'd grown up together, and now we were on opposite sides of a criminal case. 2 weeks later, Tyler's attorney approached the DA with a plea deal. Tyler would plead guilty to identity theft and fraud in exchange for testifying against Gerald in the embezzlement case. The DA accepted. Tyler was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. He'd serve at least 2 before being eligible for parole. Linda's cooperation earned her 3 years probation, 6 months house arrest, and 300 hours of community service. She'd avoid prison entirely. Gerald's trial was set for the following spring. With both Linda and Tyler testifying against him, his attorney was already discussing plea options. He was looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. The house, my childhood home, was seized as part of the restitution process. It would be sold, and the proceeds would go toward paying back Redmond Construction and partially covering my fraudulent debts. The creditors, seeing criminal convictions for identity theft, finally agreed to remove the fraudulent accounts from my credit report. It took months of paperwork and documentation, but one by one, they were wiped clean. My credit score slowly began to recover. I started my new job and threw myself into the work. My colleagues were good people who respected boundaries and didn't pry into my personal life. I was grateful for the fresh start. Marcus remained my anchor through it all. He refused to let me pay rent until I'd rebuilt my savings. He listened when I needed to talk and gave me space when I needed silence. He reminded me that family wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up when things got hard. One evening, sitting in Marcus's living room with a beer, I finally asked the question that had been haunting me. Did I do the right thing? Marcus didn't hesitate. Yes, my father's in jail. Tyler's in prison. My mother's under house arrest. The family's completely destroyed. The family destroyed itself, Vaughn. You just refuse to go down with the ship. There's a difference. It doesn't feel like winning, because it's not. It's surviving. Winning comes later, when you rebuild your life and realize you're free from people who were poisoning it. I wanted to believe him. Some days I did. Other days I wondered if I'd made everything worse by refusing to just absorb the damage and move on. But deep down, I knew Marcus was right. I'd done the only thing I could do. I'd protected myself when no one else would. 6 months after Tyler was sentenced, I moved into my own apartment. A 1-bedroom in a quiet complex with good security and a pool I'd probably never use. It was smaller than my old place, but it was mine. And every piece of furniture in it I'd bought with honestly earned money. My credit score had climbed to 648. Not great, but functional. I could get approved for things again. The fraudulent debts were gone, cleared from my record as victim restitution. I still had some lingering costs from attorney fees and the financial chaos, but I was managing. The new job was going well. I'd been promoted to senior engineer after just 4 months. My boss appreciated my work ethic and attention to detail. My colleagues invited me to happy hours and weekend hiking trips. I was building a life that felt authentic. Gerald's trial had concluded. He'd taken a plea deal rather than face Tyler and Linda's testimony in open court. 12 years in federal prison for embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. With good behavior, he might serve 8. He'd be in his 70s when he got out. Redmond Construction received partial restitution from the sale of my parents' house and Gerald's pension. They'd never recover the full amount, but at least they got something. Tyler was in Huntsville, serving his sentence. I'd received 1 letter from him, forwarded through Craig. It was rambling and partially incoherent, swinging between apology and blame. I read it once and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. But not now. Linda sent letters regularly, once a week, like clockwork. She was living with her sister in Dallas, wearing an ankle monitor and working at a grocery store to pay her fines and restitution. Her letters were different from Tyler's. They were genuinely remorseful. She wrote about how she'd enabled Gerald and Tyler for years, always choosing the path of least resistance. How she'd convinced herself that taking from me wasn't really stealing because we were family and I'd understand eventually. How she'd been so focused on protecting Tyler from consequences that she'd never stopped to think about what she was teaching him. She wrote that she was in therapy now, court-mandated but actually helpful. She was learning about codependency and enabling. She was starting to understand how she'd damaged all of us with her choices. She always ended her letters the same way. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I'm sorry. And I understand if you never want to see me again. I kept the letters but didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. But I appreciated that she was trying, even if it was too little and too late. The extended family situation had sorted itself out naturally. Some people apologized once the full truth came out. My Aunt Susan, who'd never taken sides, reached out and we'd had coffee a few times. She was genuinely kind and asked nothing of me except the chance to rebuild a relationship slowly. Others remained in denial. My Uncle Paul still insisted I'd overreacted. Some cousins blocked me on social media. I was okay with that. The trash had taken itself out, as Marcus liked to say. I started dating someone, a woman named Jenna. I'd met through a friend of Marcus's. She worked as a teacher and had a calm, grounded energy that I found soothing. On our third date, I told her everything. The whole story. I figured, if it was going to scare her off, better to know early. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. That must have been incredibly hard, she said. It was, but you did the right thing. You protected yourself. That takes courage. We'd been dating for 3 months now, taking things slowly. She respected my boundaries and understood when I needed space to process things. She was good people, as Marcus would say. Marcus himself had become more than a friend. He was the brother I should have had. When I tried to thank him for everything he'd done, for taking me in and supporting me through the worst period of my life, he just shrugged. That's what family does, he said. Real family. And that was the lesson I'd learned through all of this. Family isn't determined by blood. It's determined by who shows up when things are hard, who supports you without conditions, who respects you enough to be honest, even when it's difficult. My biological family had failed every one of those tests. They'd put their own desires above my well-being. They'd lied, stolen, and manipulated. And when confronted with consequences, they'd tried to destroy me rather than accept responsibility. But my chosen family, Marcus and Jenna, and my coworkers who'd become friends, they'd shown me what real support looked like. I'd also learned that protecting yourself from people who harm you isn't betrayal, even if they're family. For years, I'd been taught that family loyalty meant absorbing whatever damage they caused, that being the responsible one meant cleaning up everyone else's messes, that causing waves made me the problem. But that was wrong. Enabling destructive behavior doesn't help anyone. It just allows the harm to continue and spread. By refusing to be a victim, by holding my family accountable, I'd broken a toxic cycle. Tyler was learning consequences for the first time in his life. Maybe prison would teach him what our parents never did. Or maybe he'd come out bitter and unchanged. That wasn't my responsibility anymore. Linda was facing the truth about her role in the family's dysfunction. Her therapy and community service and ankle monitor were teaching her accountability. Maybe she'd change. Maybe she wouldn't. But at least she had the opportunity. Gerald would spend the next decade in prison thinking about his choices. Part of me felt sorry for him. Part of me didn't. He'd built his life on lies and theft, and eventually, It collapsed. That was justice, even if it felt hollow. As for me, I was rebuilding. Slowly, carefully, with intention. I was learning to trust again, but with boundaries. I was learning that my worth wasn't tied to my family's approval or validation. I was enough, all on my own. One Saturday morning, I stood in my new apartment, looking at a photo on my phone. Marcus, Jenna, and me at a hiking trail outside Austin, smiling in the sunshine, happy, free, unburdened. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not complete happiness yet, but peace. The weight of carrying my family's dysfunction was gone. I'd cut the anchor rope, and I was floating instead of drowning. The road ahead was mine to build. No one was stealing from my future anymore. No one was forging my signature on my life. I was in control, maybe for the first time ever, and that was enough. That was more than enough. I thought about everything I'd been through and tried to distill it into something meaningful. What would I tell someone else facing a similar situation? I'd tell them that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. That protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. That real love respects boundaries. And anything that demands you sacrifice yourself isn't love at all. I'd tell them that the people who truly care about you will understand when you need to step back from toxicity. That chosen family can be stronger than blood family. That you're allowed to grieve the family you wish you had, while accepting the reality of the family you actually have. I'd tell them that consequences aren't punishment, they're accountability. That sometimes people need to feel the full weight of their choices before they can change. And that whether they change or not isn't your responsibility. Most importantly, I'd tell them that their worth isn't determined by how much abuse they can endure. That standing up for yourself is brave, not cruel. That sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destruction. I saved the photo and put my phone down. Through the window, Austin stretched out under a blue sky. Somewhere in that city were people working on solutions to problems, creating art, falling in love, building lives. The world was full of possibility, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of it. Not a victim of someone else's choices, but an active participant in my own story. My family had tried to write my story for me, using my name and signature without permission, but I'd taken the pen back. The rest of the story was mine to write, and I intended to make it a good one. Before I finish, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and keeping peace with family? Have you been in a situation where doing the right thing meant facing backlash from people you loved? How did you handle it? I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Sharing this video might help someone else who's dealing with family manipulation or identity theft know they're not alone. Your support means everything and helps me continue sharing these stories. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long and difficult, but I appreciate you sticking with me through all of it. Whatever you're facing in your own life, I hope you know that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember that you're worth protecting, even from the people who are supposed to love you most.